The business of copywriting is much more complex and nuanced than it is presented in the get rich quick, how to write copy, work from anywhere in the world type programs. And I hope to, through ad briefings, bring you that perspective in a way that allows you to implement those things that are necessary to make you a more productive writer, as well as to get more clients. So I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefings Copywriting Tips. And today we're going to talk about an efficiency activity that improves your ability to write copy that sells. Now, again, I don't teach you how to write headlines and opening paragraphs and stuff like that, because you can go to Dan Kennedy, you can go to Gary Halbert, you can go to Joe Polish, you could go to a lot of people out there and get really high quality nuts and bolts on how to write copy. What I know how to do with my risk management, business development, and project management experience is how to actually run a business that is profitable. So if you already have a few clients, how do we multiply the number of clients? And then how do we work more productively so that we have a bigger margin? Because we know a lot of bad stuff happens behind the scenes that causes frustration and headache. Like, so for example, we have a network attached storage device that has about 2 or 3 terabytes of video that we use for our podcasts and the content we're creating for clients and such. And I had to rebuild one of the volumes, and it needed 6 days to rebuild the volume. And then prior to that, it took another 15 days for troubleshooting. So I would have been better off just buying a new NAS device and putting it on the network. Now, I understand this now. I would have been better off buying a new NAS device, network attached storage, put it on the network, and then keep working, go ahead and get a few more clients, than to put up with the frustration of having to rebuild a storage pool. And I know that might not make sense, but think about the day-to-day frustrations and habits and things that happen to you that get in the way of the service of your clients. And so what my goal is with ad briefings is to help you more efficiently run your office, so you can transition from freelance copywriter who's chasing jobs and bidding and praying and hoping that a client will accept your proposal, to an in-demand agency, whether it's you and a few virtual assistants, but an agency concept that has systems for developing new clients, systems for serving existing clients, and then ways of expanding the business growth. Now, one such way is to build a library of content that helps you specialize in a particular target market. And we do this through taxonomy. Now, taxonomy is the categorization or the organization of ideas and concepts. And the taxonomy for writers, especially copywriters, is category, keywords, and persona. And so, what categories are you writing for? Well, when you do research for clients, you can catalog that research into category areas. And again, it depends on really what you're doing category wise. In our business, we have a couple demonstration sites that are one is in the homesteading category. This is in the copywriting category. Ad briefings is copywriting category. We have one in the wealth category. We have one in the uh, personal achievement category. Now, these are very generalized, but again, if you're writing an ad for a car company, that is a car category. And if you map out all the research and industry stats related to that car category, the next time you get an assignment in someone in that car category, you just pull up the information from your library. You don't have to go search for stuff. You've got copies of controls. You've got, tips and insights about the industry. You've got concepts that you can look at. One such category that's very helpful is uh, the actual IAB category taxonomy. Now, this category taxonomy is from, I think it's the Internet Advertising Bureau. It's categorizations that are used to target markets. So, for example, IAB3 is a business general category, but IAB3-1 is an advertising specific category. So you can use industry categorization. And I'll give you a couple more industry categorizations that help. Now, instead of having to go out and research from scratch, you can say to a client, so you're writing an advertisement, you can say in your targeting, which particular IAB categories will you be targeting? Now, that's for somebody who's a little more sophisticated, and they'll actually know. And then this allows you to better target in your ad consoles and know what your ad should write about. But there's even an IAB 9-13 for freelance writing. So if I want to put an ad out for ad briefings and I want freelance writers who have a hobby or interest in this category, and I also want them to have a advertising interest, I can then target on a larger ad network, IAB 3-1 for advertising and IAB 9-13 for freelance writing. And now I've got copywriters in the business opportunity market. Now, this is extremely important because our taxonomy for category is going to catalog things about, like, what is the average income for a freelance writer? Now, we're using the IAB categorization, and there are other categorizations because it's got context when it comes to artificial intelligence. It's got context when it comes to ad networks. It shows up in your reporting. You may not see it, but in your analytics, these categories show up. And so what we're able to do now is store less in our internal library, but it's higher quality reference material that helps us zero in on the buyer for a product or service. Same thing with keywords. I see a lot of ads online, or a lot of training about how to do content mapping and how to do keyword research. Well, all the research you've done about keywords, properly documented in your content vault, is going to save you time and effort. So just like the shortcut of just buying a new NAS and putting it on the network and migrating the volumes that have my 2 terabytes of video on it and a bunch of client files and stuff, which I have access to those things. So it's not like a big deal. I just can't actively, it's a read-only version. I just can't actively work on that. But instead of having those delays, we now can say, okay, well, in this case, the root keyword for clearing land has synonyms of land clearing, clear land, trail clearing, clearing land. And then the topics that derive from those is like how to clear a trail in the woods by hand, or trail building and clearing in the woods for your homestead. See, I've done research already on this topic, and this is a topic that's relevant for foresters. If I was writing copy for foresters, for the forestry mulching organization, which would be a subset of forestry. If I was doing this for a services company that actually cleared trails on public parks. Do you see what we're doing here? We already did the research on the keyword. Now we're cataloging the keyword, and we're keeping track of it in a way that we can easily recall the information. Because again, at the keyword level, it's relevant to 10, 15, 30, 40 different clients. You don't have to do research specific to each client. Now, from this research, though, I would write specific content for the client. I wouldn't recycle the content that we've written for one client for another client, except in a limited number of cases. But so you can see the keyword taxonomy. Now, where do we get the keywords and the research from the keywords? Well, we can get them from the Google keyword tool. We can get them from SEMrush, Ahrefs. We could hire a consultant, and here's where we have the scale. We could hire a freelancer to go do keyword research on 5 or 6 keywords, or to help us develop the 5 or 6 root keywords that we're targeting in content. And then when they give the materials back, we just ask them to put them in a template. And so I have these templates, and so I didn't have to go spend hours searching for these keywords. I could give the template to somebody and say, hey, look, I'm looking for keywords that are suitable for foresters and folks that do the chipping in the woods with the forestry mulching machines. And they go out and do it, and then they give me the file, and then I write copy. And I know I've done this for so long, it seems simple, and I don't mean to discount it. It does require a little bit of time and forethought to store information in your content library so that you can extract it later, because you just can't haphazardly throw it in there. But again, where do you overlap past work, and where could you save time by being able to recall the things that you've had in the past? When we're writing copy today, we're not just writing it from memory. And we're going to talk about personas next, but we're focusing on specific audiences, and it's kind of like a Venn diagram: a specific audience, a specific topical category, and then a offer. And so we're trying to find the overlap between the three, where we can use the content to justify to the audience why they should take action on the offer. So the last thing I want to talk about is the personas. Now, in the personas, I like to use Claris Prism market segmentation. It's a behavioral segmentation. And again, if any of this stuff is unfamiliar to you, please get a discovery call, get engaged with the newsletter, get to the website and ask your questions, because these are the way that top producers are able to write copy and get paid six figures rather than just chasing the next thing on, link, you're spamming people on LinkedIn and you're chasing people on Odesk and you're trying to get some work on Fiverr. I want you to get away from that as a freelance copywriter who is basically working hand to mouth and get into an agency model, because once we have these libraries put together, now a Cub copywriter can access the library and be up and running quickly. So here's an example. There's a Prism behavioral marketing segment called Second Act Rancher. And I'm going to read to you a narrative that's in basically a buyer persona that's in my library here. So I've got a directory called Taxonomy. It contains 3 directories: category, keywords, and persona. I'm in the persona directory, and I'm in a file called Second Act Rancher. And here is a narrative from them that would help me write copy if I'm targeting this audience. After 20 years in the corporate grind, I'm trading my power suit for overalls. I built a fortune in tech, but my soul craves nature and purpose. I want a sprawling ranch, sustainable practices, and maybe a herd of bison. Think Teddy Roosevelt meets Elon Musk. I need someone who speaks my language, understands my drive, and can help turn this dream into a reality, not just a hobby farm. Now, that is a narrative summary of the Prism category for Second Act Rancher. That is a psychological and demographic profile that when I write copy to this group, now this could be writing copy for a dude ranch. It could be writing copy for a homesteading course, a regenerative agricultural system, like a trainer who's teaching regenerative agriculture. It could be about the business opportunity of bison. It could be someone in the remote work category. And do you see how this helps me understand their needs and desires? So I'm looking for people that are older and they have finished the corporate grind, so I can call them out. Are you about done with the corporate grind and you want to trade your power suit for overalls? You want the freedom and experience of being in the great outdoors, yet have something that's practical and feeds that drive? We're not talking about retirement. We're talking about an opportunity for you to have new experiences, to be seen as a leader in a different area, yet more rewarding area. See, you'll have more access to nature and greater purpose in life. Do you see what we're doing here? So it could have taken weeks to come up with this narrative, or it could have been something that we created using AI. The key point is all the bullet points that are after this help me write copy to a Second Act Rancher. So if I take the Second Act Rancher and I take a category topic and I take relevant keywords to that category, all of my research is done. Now, I do want to refresh this, because if you're writing copy for a specific company, let's say I'm selling a mail order bison meat by mail, and I'm selling the experience that this person right now is working in the corporate world, and they'd love to have a bison farm, but they're not there yet, but they can start enjoying bison meat, because you want to make sure you like the flavor before you end up with a bunch of bison out on your property. And so that synopsis becomes lead generation copy. We know who to target in the marketplace, because a Second Act Rancher is an older age category, probably income of $150,000 or more. They're going to have a middle management or executive title. Do you see what I'm doing here? Do you see how powerful this is? So I could come up with, when I'm working with a client, I could come up with these almost like on storyboard, and I could say, okay, well, let's pick two clients. Let's pick 2 personas that you want to target for this particular campaign. And I can literally go in and say, along the lines of the Second Act Rancher, well, what about a burnout fixer consultant? Now, again, these are tied to Prism behavioral marketing categories. There's a lot more data available about these individuals, but we wrote a paragraph to kind of get a feeling for this particular campaign I was working on. And so the burnout fixer consultant, here's their narrative. I built a high flying consulting firm, but the endless travel and client demands are crushing my spirit. I crave a simpler life, closer to nature. I'm buying a small farm, but I'm clueless about agriculture. I need a coach who can teach me the ropes fast so I can build a sustainable income from the land while rediscovering my well-being. Think about farm to table therapy from the side of financial security. So again, it, this might be an investment opportunity. It might be a bio village. It might be a buying into an existing farm. But together, if I'm taking second act rancher and I'm taking the burnout fixer consultant, I've got ideas for two campaigns. The framework could be the same, but I could write one campaign for the corporate grind and one campaign for the burn fixed out. In fact, my goal here is to take you from freelance copywriter to marketing agency, and then that agency gets so big, you'll probably end up as a burnout fixer consultant, where you just want the simple life. And now I've transitioned you through to financial security, yet I've given you a destination. And so again, these personas help you target in a marketplace. Now, if you want to go into these personas more, I've got a handful of them that I've used for clients in the past, and that I'm constantly developing them. So it's not something that you're going to do once and then never do again. But we could sit down and talk about your buyer persona for clients of your copywriting. See, so once you start building these personas out, you're now focusing your effort on particular people with money to spend, and you're also targeting specific keywords that have traffic, and then you're in specific categories that have marketing channels. And can you see how this really streamlines what you're doing as a marketer? Now, again, if you're just throwing the next thing up on Fiverr and hoping somebody comes in, and you're working on 50 different types of assignments, and you're chasing that hamster wheel of maybe I'll get another assignment next week, then you're not, mining deep in a particular marketplace, because either one of those conversations, just having the persona in place, tells me where I need to market. Now, again, this persona is in my system, and it's got bullet points after it, and it's got media categories, and it's got keyword sets that are related to the thing. So, for example, the escape hatch investor, their narrative is Wall Street's a roller coaster, and lately my stomach can't take it. I'm cashing out buying a secluded mountain retreat and investing in off-grid living. And I'll just leave it at that because I want to show you what this has done. Looking at that, I have a keyword of mountain retreat. I have a keyword of real estate. I have a keyword of cashing out, so near retirement. In that concept itself, I could just on that one persona, I could develop 4 or 5 root keywords. I could develop 10 or 15 long tail keywords. I could go right into ad categories, and I could just simply place ads and get customers. Now, there's analytics in between. Like I said, there are some nuances that you need to understand. But if you want to get started and you don't have a content library, you don't have one place where you have 23 years or 30 years of your writing in one place, if you don't have the client assignment, your past client assignment somewhere you can search, if you don't have a swipe file, then why are you working the hard way? And see, now when you work the easy way and you have systems in place, you're going to be able to have higher margins because you're not having to reinvent the world every time. Now, I got this idea hearing about Dan Kennedy's room with all the file cabinets, and he'd have people come for a day of consulting, and he'd sneak off to his little room, and he'd come back with controls, and he'd come back with buyer personas, and he'd come back with old campaigns that could be recycled, and he'd never let anybody in the room because they discover his secret, I guess. But the point of it is he had a place where his reference materials were organized, his historical writing was organized. Maybe it's books on a shelf. If you don't have that right now, that is a game changer in going from a 5-figure producer a year to 6, 7, 8 figures. Now, 8 figures tends to be your gross when you have an agency, and you're not going to get to keep all that money. But for every $1 million in gross, you're likely to keep $100,000 as your net proceeds. And see, what we're doing here with ad briefings is rather than teaching you the nuance of how to write a headline, because that's getting easier and easier every day, it's how to reach buyers. It's how to use words to sell, not words to put words on a page, not words to determine how much you get paid, but words to sell to high value clients into specific niches. And then now, once you start gaining that specialization, you could demand higher rates. You don't even demand higher rates, by the way, is once you're a specialist and you have controls and you have performance, you'll start getting referrals. And then you're going to be that coveted resource that these larger organizations just must do business with. But again, if you're acting like a guy on a laptop sitting on a beach rather than an agency, you're not going to think about these tools. And so I've got a tool that I can go to and I can say, okay, are you working with impactful exit executives? Are you looking for escape hatch investors? Describe to me the client that you're looking for. I go into the Prism market segmentation. I pull out that exact person. I look at the personas. I look at the client's product. I start writing out the narratives in the language of the customer. And then from the language of the customer, I speak to their needs and their desires using everything that I've learned from Dan Kennedy, everything I've learned from Joe Polish, everything I've learned from Gary Halbert, um, you know, Joe Sugarman, and apply it specifically to selling products to a buyer, a hungry crowd that has desires and needs that we've documented. And now I can come back and I can start using current news. So you're going to refresh with current news. I can use new studies and research. I can just start building around that persona. And now when I'm talking to that audience is like, I'm in the right place. I know where I need to be. The impactful executive. I left the corporate ladder to climb mountains. Literally, now I'm leading expeditions and teaching wilderness survival and building an eco lodge in the Rockies. Now that person doesn't actually exist. There's a synthesization of multiple different people, but now I get a mailing list of people who have recently sold their companies, who have an interest in ecotourism or teaching, and now finally I go and look in the Rockies, if that's where the client's located. I've taken all the hard work out. Now, over the last 20 some years, these things get written, but I can keep reusing them because I've got information stored in a way that I can extract it. I've organized my research rather than, having piles of notebooks everywhere, which I do have piles of notebooks everywhere, but I have cross-referencing and such. So if you're interested in organizing information better, if you're interested in being more productive as a writer, if you want to be able to leverage the experiences that you have in writing copy, then you're in the right place. All I ask of you is to share your questions so I can make sure I provide podcasts that are relevant to your needs. I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. You can ask your questions at www.adbriefings.co.uk. And I've got a bunch of free resources available to you. I've got some demonstrations. In fact, I would have recorded a demonstration today if my local hard disk wasn't all full of garbage and my network drive was working the way it's supposed to. But it's going to be 6 more days before my network attached storage is ready. And I am contemplating dropping a new device in here because I'm really sweating it. Anyway, I'm Justin Hitt from Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. Let's help you grow your copywriting business. Thanks for listening.